it became a fear of mine coming to fruition. Because I also had this fear when I got in business that somebody will go online and say things like that about me. And that fear came true in January of 2023. That's exactly what happened. This person went online and tagged me, tagged some of my partners, and like it just said all these things about me that weren't true, to be honest. And when I wanted to have a conversation with this person, she didn't want to talk to me. And then I caved. One thing that I remember being petrified of, almost to the point of paralysis, was the idea that my fears can come to fruition. Has that been your experience? Have you ever felt so afraid of what you were afraid of? So afraid that the things that you really do not want to come to fruition would happen. And when we are in that energy of fear, it can be really difficult to navigate those moments when the things we are afraid of actually come to life. And what I want to do in this episode is show you what's in the other side of that. What I want to do is walk you through what it was like for me to experience my own fears fully materialize on a grand scale. and really just share my story on how I journeyed that so that I can be on the other side of those fears and learn from them, because what we don't realize is that those fears are truly blessings in disguise. In sharing my story, I really desire for you to take what serves you and leave what doesn't, in case you find yourself in a position in your life where something that you were deeply afraid of comes to life. You know exactly how to show up for it so that you can be on the other side of it with compassion and with grace. I want to remind you that this is episode number 2 of my 3-part mini-series titled The Power of Unlocking Spiritual Discernment in Your Life. To watch the first part, check out the show notes so that you can grab the link. Also, remember that this is a video podcast, so make sure that you head to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Yenory Pouncil, to subscribe and catch the YouTube experience. Here is the second key to unlocking the power of spiritual discernment in your life. Let's begin. The second key to unlocking the power of spiritual discernment in your life is to accept that everything and everyone is a mirror. This was a lesson that was brought to me by now a former client. When 2022 started, when I had my son, I started working with a woman who I actually went to school with. And this was somebody that I was so excited to work with. I knew her from undergraduate school, and I knew that she was extremely, dope. And I felt excited to work with her, particularly to support her in her life as a mentor. And we hit it off. We were doing really great work. She attended the retreat I hosted in the my first in-person retreat, which was part of my mastermind. And she loved it. She even wanted to do additional work with me. So I felt really, really great about working with this woman because, again, she was an amazing client and I was excited to work with her. This is the thing though. When the ego entered the building, it stayed for a while. So when I was working with this person, my ego was also hanging out. And my ego began to make money its master. And as a result of that, slowly my focus became on I gotta make money. I gotta make money. I gotta make money. The people that were in my community my coaching program I was a part of were like, we were focused on this. This is what we were there for. And we were like, yes, let's do this. And when I started, part of making money became so important to me that there were other parts of me that became less important because we can only serve one master. So if I'm focused on making money, I'm not focused on taking care of myself. I'm not focused on being in my spiritual practice. I'm not focused on my meditation. I'm not focused on doing the things that put me in a position to serve in a way that is aligned. And when I started working with this person at the beginning, everything was going great. And I had agreed to do 2 in-person events. I did the first event. It was wonderful. The second event was scheduled to be at the end of the year. And that event was scheduled to be an international event. Coming out of the first event where I just told y'all I ended up taking a loan to be able to do it in the way that I desired to do it at the time, in the way that my ego was like, hey, we got to do it in this way. My husband was very clear that we weren't going to do that a second time. Because the first time he's like, it's fine. We do the investment. We're going to utilize all of this content. It's going to serve us, but we're not going to do this a second time. Okay. So if we're going to do this second time, we're going to do another event. Yes, we're going to make sure that the business can sustain that. And when the time came for it, I started to realize that that wasn't going to be possible. The sales had slowed down and I hadn't added another client to that particular mastermind and offer, even though I had been selling it the entire time. There was a client that I did add to that offer that joined that program, and that person ended up pretty much ghosting me with a $24,000 balance. So the funds weren't there to do this international retreat in the way that I desired to do it, or to do it, period. So I made the decision, very uncomfortable decision. I didn't want to make the decision at all, to do a virtual version of it. That way I can take a step back, and then in the 2023 year, offer my clients the retreat that I originally promised to be an international experience. We will be right back after this brief message. Hola, mis amores. If you are listening to this episode, I want to invite you to join me as a member of the Subject Society. The Subject Society is the go-to space for Black women that are healing while leading, for women that are committed to putting themselves first no matter what's happening in their lives, and to do it in a way that is full of ease, calm, and flow. So if you are here and you are desiring to go through the journey of self-discovery, of shedding, of embodying, of integrating the most amazing and beautiful parts of yourself into all areas of your life, that is a space where you're going to thrive. That is a space that's going to be able to hold space for you, hold space for your authenticity, so that you can experience the life you desire with ease and with flow. To join us, head to thesubjectsociety.com to get the details on the plans that we offer, so that you can be a part of our sisterhood and begin to experience your transformation in community. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Let's get back to the episode. During this time, I also was experiencing being outside for the first time. We had been indoors for this entire time, and this was when we were first starting to go back outside. So I got a chance to travel to see my friends. I went to one of my friends' weddings. Some of my friends came to town to hang in our Basel because I live in Fort Lauderdale, so we were able to attend events with some of my friends who were working some of these events. So I was so excited to be outside. And by the time that it came for that second retreat that I was hosting, I wasn't feeling well. I wasn't feeling well at all. And I ended up getting sick because some of my friends came into town with their son, and their son was sick, and he ended up getting our son sick, and then ended up getting food poisoning. So all of this to tell y'all that I was not feeling well. And here I was about to do a whole retreat on wellness and taking care of ourselves. And your girl had a stomach bug and a flu, and she didn't even consider rescheduling it. And when one of my alumni was like, yo, why you didn't reschedule that? I was like, oh, I just wanted to do it. When in reality, I didn't even think about it. So when this happened, my guys were like, you got to turn this shit around. It's time. It's time, babes. This is not sustainable. And you got to turn these things around for yourself. At this point, I had been returning to my spiritual practices very slowly. I had been communicating with my guides. I had been starting to come back home to myself. So their voice and my inner voice was getting louder and louder. So I was beginning to return to my practices that keep me in a space of alignment. And it was at this moment that they were like, you got to stop putting this work thing to the side. Because up to this moment, it was like work, 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 work. If my clients need something, I'm dropping everything so I can give them whatever. Because I had this fear that if I did not do what my clients wanted me to do, that they would leave and that they wouldn't pay me and that I wouldn't have any money coming in and then my business would be a failure. So this fear that was present for me was driving my actions. This is again the ego taking over and doing its thing. So I was putting them above myself. I was putting them above what was best for me. And that was the month, December was the month when I decided I was going to turn that around. So I had a call scheduled with this particular person and they were late to that call. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to look at my phone after 20 minutes of being late. I'm going to put this for tomorrow. I'm going to go spend some time at my altar. As I'm editing this podcast, I'm having my own reflections about this experience. And when I was going through this experience, y'all, there was a part of me that really had so much resistance to putting myself first while this whole thing was going on. And I know that if you're here and you're listening, it's because you're very similar to me. So you want to deliver in whatever you're doing. You want to show up powerfully. You want to give the same energy that you like to get back. So oftentimes that materializes as not putting ourselves first, as not following our intuition in this type of moments, because we, especially if you're anything like me and experience people pleasing, we get accustomed and we have learned to put other people before us. And what I want you to take away from this episode and what I want you to take away from me sharing this experience is that it's okay for you to put yourself first. It is okay for you to put yourself first when people don't like it. It is okay for you to put yourself first when people quote unquote reject you. It is okay for you to put yourself first when people come for you and what feels like people are coming for you, because that is you going through your test. That is you going through the test that then becomes your testimony. And in that moment, it doesn't feel like it is okay to do that. It doesn't feel like it is safe to do that. And it is, because when you do it, you're teaching yourself how you want people to treat you. And the first person that has to learn how to treat you is you, because we are operating from this conditioned self. So as you're going through your process and your experiences, whether it's in your business or in your platonic or romantic relationships, and it feels hard to put yourself first, I want to encourage you right now. I want to encourage you to continue to do it even when it feels hard. Continue to do it even when people do not approve of it. Continue to do it even when people are saying that you're doing something wrong and that it's not good that you're doing that, because people are only giving you what they have. And in those moments, it feels very tempting to silence ourselves. It feels very tempting to not put yourself first because people don't like it. And I want to encourage you to put yourself first. I want to encourage you to keep going for yourself, because the only person you can control is you. And sometimes you're going to get out of alignment. That happens. It happened to me. It's going to happen to me again at some point. And what matters is what we do after. There's that quote about, it's not about how many times you fall down, it's about how many times you get up. Well, it's not about how many times you get out of alignment. It's about how many times you bring yourself back into alignment after having those moments. And I feel like it's so powerful that even as I am editing this podcast and having gone through this experience for over a year, there are so many nuggets and aha moments that I'm gathering from that particular experience. And that's what's possible for you when you open yourself to learning and to growing from whatever you have going on. And this is why it's so critical that you put yourself first, because the only person you can control is you. Let's continue. And I say that because this was one of the things that this person cited as a turning point for them in our relationship. And when this happened, when the situation happened, it really brought so many things out, because this person who obviously is a former client, as I just shared with you, she was very vocal about her displeased with the fact that I did not respond to her, even though she was 20 minutes late to the conversation. She was very vocal about the fact that I didn't share with her in advance that I had a 15-minute policy where if you're late more than 15 minutes, I'm not going to sit and wait for you anymore, which is something I told her after the fact. I was like, yo, you were late more than 15 minutes. I'm not going to sit there longer than that. And she was correct. I hadn't communicated that to her explicitly in the contract, although I had communicated that to my clients in general as a policy that I had. at the very same time when that happened, then she was very unhappy with that. So it ended up snowballing. And I'm not going to go deeper into the details, but it ended up snowballing into this point where when she decided she didn't want to work with me anymore after we're trying to go back and forth on it, but she was like, I don't want to work with you anymore. I'm moving on. And she had invested about $20,000 to work with me in additional services due to be delivered in the following year. She's like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want my money back. And she even went in the community that she was a part of with my other clients and posted up all of our private conversations. And she went really like front facing with her displeased with how I was navigating that part of our situation, while at the same time letting me know that my program worked and that she had gotten results. And she went on social media and said things that I was a fraud. She said all these things about me. It became a fear of mine coming to fruition, because I also had this fear when I got in business that somebody will go online and say things like that about me. And that fear came true in January of 2023. That's exactly what happened. This person went online and tagged me, tagged some of my partners, and like just said all these things about me that weren't true, to be honest. And when I wanted to have a conversation with this person, she didn't want to talk to me. And then I caved because my sense of flight or flight was so triggered by this fear that I was like, how can I help? How can I do this so that she can stop? What can I do so that I can save myself from this discomfort? And she was like, I want my money back. I want it in 30 days. And I was like, yes, I will do that. I will do that for you, because I just wanted her to stop. I wanted myself to stop. There was something I wanted to also add that I didn't mention in the original episode when I recorded this, and that's that when this person decided they didn't want to work with me anymore, their bank ended up doing a $20,000 chargeback on my account. So the reason why the bank ended up doing this $20,000 chargeback was because after I agreed during my panic mode to pay this person the money back or to refund them the money at the time that they wanted to, I realized that wasn't going to be sustainable and that that's not how business works, and that I was acting out of fear. So I consulted with a lawyer, I consulted with one of my business mentors, and they helped me calm down and go back to this person from a position of power. And I told them, hey, we are going to refund you this money in the way that you paid us, in installments. And we're going to do it over a period of time. We're not going to do it right away. And they didn't like that. So what ended up happening was their bank issued a chargeback for my business. And this is the first time I've ever had a chargeback. And the $20,000 chargeback is not the place that I recommend starting for any business owner. At the same time, I was reflecting on like, why did this happen? Like, why did this person had to like do this chargeback? Why was this something that I was called to experience? Why was this part of my experience? And yesterday, I happened to be reading The Game of Life and How to Play It, which is a really great book. I highly recommend it. I'll drop it in the show notes. And when I was reading this book, the author was talking about how important it is that we are only focused on ourselves and not on trying to control other people or attempting to control other people. And one thing that stood out for me from that experience was that the money this person had invested to work with me, those $20,000, they weren't for services that specifically included just her. The $20,000 that this person invested in working with me were not for services that were exclusive to her. These were services that included other people, family members and her partner, that had not asked to be part of this experience. So here I was being an accessory to try to control other people instead of calling her to focus on herself. And that's because I wasn't focused on myself. And this is why the mirroring thing is so important, because when you start to see those connections and you start to connect those dots, it's pretty clear as to why that money was not in alignment and why that money needed to get out of my energetics, because that isn't how I like to move. That isn't how I'm designed to operate. It's very important that we know that, because when we're making decisions as business owners, we can only focus on ourselves. And if you're sharing that message, if you're embodying that message, anytime you make decisions out of your ego that are out of alignment with that, guess what? That money is going to have to come out of your energetics. And for me, that meant a $20,000 chargeback. It wasn't something that I was actually prepared to experience because, like I told you in the previous episode, which I link in the show notes, part 1 of this series, I was investing in other things. I was investing in the branding project. I was investing in my business coach. So I didn't really have the money sitting down there. At least I had about 50% of it available for that chargeback, but I wasn't prepared for that because I hadn't been thinking that was going to happen in the first place. And that's why it's important that we are being very vigilant around the services that we offer and when we choose to offer those services. Because if the reason why somebody wants to bring somebody to work with me is not because that person has asked, that person is not designed to be working with me. And in that moment, I was not paying attention to that because I was focused on, okay, this is great. Like, I'm expanding my services. I'm expanding the things I'm offering. And that's what happens when we get out of alignment. We lose sight of the thing that we're there to do. And for me specifically as a mentor, I'm here to always lead people back to themselves. And if you don't want to come back to yourself, if you want to bring other people into the fold, that's not in alignment. And that's something that you got to pay attention to, because when you are in your life and you're making decisions that are perhaps out of alignment with you, you may not realize why things are happening the way that they are happening. And when you pay attention to see, how am I getting out of alignment? How am I acting out of the way that I said I want to act? Then it becomes really clear to you. It becomes really clear to you why things had to unfold the way that they unfolded. So these fears that materialize are truly blessings in disguise, whether we realize it or not. And I wanted to share that because I feel like it's really important for us to remember that we can only control ourselves. I feel like I've said that 7 times on this episode because it's true. And that's one of the big things to be aware of when it comes to discernment. You can only control yourself. So being discerning around how you expand your energy is going to be really important because you can control other people. All right, let's get back to the episode. And when I took a step back from this situation and I saw how this person was talking to me, I saw what this person was sharing with me, I saw the things that messages, like there was a message about, I'm going to destroy you and your business. When I saw all of that anger, I remember taking a moment and realizing that remembering that everything and everyone is a mirror to me. So I had the awareness to look at, Yenory, I know that what this person is doing has nothing to do with me. I learned that from the 4 agreements in Don Miguel Ruiz, where he says, no matter what people do, they're not doing it because of you, they're doing it because of themselves. At the very same time, I knew that there was a reason why I was a part of that story. There was a reason why I was there. And I believe that 2 things. Number 1, as above, so below, as within, so without, which means that everything that is inside of us is being reflected outside of us. And everything that is reflected outside of us is inside of us. And I also believe that when we are in a situation, there's something there to receive. Because when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And sometimes I'm the student. I focus on being the student. And sometimes I focus on being the teacher. And always I know that there is space for both. So in the midst of this, I allow myself to see, Yenory, what can you learn about the situation? What's going on here? Is this how you are feeling about yourself? Do you want to destroy this business? Do you feel like you putting yourself first is unacceptable? Do you feel like you're trying to get money off of people? What this person is saying is not true. Do you feel like it's true though? Do you feel like you are showing up in this way? And when I took a step back, y'all, everything just blew wide open. What this person was saying about me wasn't true. And at the very same time, I felt like it was. There was a part of me that felt that it was unacceptable that I was prioritizing myself. There was a part of me that felt like it was unacceptable that I had not answered her call after the fact that she was late and that I was not at her begging order. There was a part of me that felt that it was unacceptable that that I had said this retreat as a virtual retreat instead of going into further debt and doing a in-person international retreat like I originally promised. There was a part of me that felt that it was unacceptable that I was acting in this way and that I wasn't pleasing her, pleasing them, because that meant that I may not be having the clients. And there was a part of me that felt so angry at how I was showing up in this business because I knew deep down that I was not in alignment. And that part of me was fed up. That part of me wanted to blow this thing wide open and completely destroy it so that it can come anew because it was so tired of being silenced. And it was because I had the courage to look at my shadow. And then I had the courage to accept that everything and everyone is a mirror, that I was able to learn that. Because I was afraid. I was so afraid of disappointing them. I wanted my clients to stay. And I thought that for them to stay, it meant that I had to please them. And I've been recovering from people pleasing my entire life. And in that moment, I gave in to the people pleasing in ways that I didn't even realize I could give in. And I felt so angry at myself. I felt so disappointed in myself. I felt so frustrated in myself. I felt so resentful towards my husband because he would put himself first while I was teaching a retreat sick with a stomach bug. I felt so resentful at him for choosing to heal while I was choosing to pretend to be okay when I was not feeling well. And this situation with this person helped me see how out of alignment I had become. And I know that there are times in our lives where we experience things that are so violent, that are so crazy and jarring, that it has to be divine's way of saying, you're going to see them some shit today. Because if you don't see it like this, you're not going to do anything about it. And that is where I was when this happened. And suddenly, this situation that happened, this situation that was triggering this feelings of fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, became a blessing to me because I saw that she was right about some things. What she was saying wasn't right, all of it. She was right about some things. I was showing up in some of the ways that she was talking about, and I was in denial about it. I was in denial about who I became because I was focused on making money. And there's nothing wrong with making money. And this is where discernment comes in, right? Because I believe that we are here to live an abundant life. I know that we are here to live an abundant life. And I desire for people to make all the money they desire to make. Of course. At the very same time, it doesn't have to come at the expense of yourself. And now I know that too. When I closed 2022, we hit over 200. We had done $276,000 in revenue the entire year. I had never made that much money in a year, whether it be it in a 9 to 5 or in my business until that point. And that was the moment where I was learning what it was like to discern the type of clients I wanted to work with, the type of energy I decided to amplify, and the type of ways in which I desired to show up to that energy. And it was because of this person that I was able to see that in a completely different way. There is a devotional book that I read as part of my spiritualist practice. And it has a deep dive into the Our Father prayer. And one of the things that he says is, where is it? Here. Let us therefore bless the hand that hurts and humbles us. For the wounds of the body fortify our soul, and we shall be lifted from our humility. This is why I harbor no anger or resentments toward this person. For the things that were said, for the way in which things were said, I don't harbor any of that because I know that one, I had a part in this situation, and I take full responsibility for the way I showed up in there. There's something I wanted to share about taking responsibility for yourself because I mentioned that I took responsibility for myself in this episode. And I feel like it's really important to get a little bit deeper into what that was because I'm even sitting right now with like, well, what does that mean for somebody that may not be aware of what that looks like for you, i.e. for me? Taking responsibility for myself really meant to be honest with the fact that I played a part in this entire situation. It can be really difficult to do that when somebody is reflecting and mirroring back to you parts of yourself that you do not want to see, that you do not want to face, and that you actually would like to avoid. But it's important at that very same time that we're looking at how we are showing up, that we're looking at how we are contributing to the reality that we are experiencing. And there are moments where you don't want to do that, where you don't want to look at the things that you have done that actually led to where you are right now. And it's normal to do that. It's okay to do that because that's how most of us have learned to navigate those moments. That's how I learned to navigate those moments. And it's been because of the years, over a decade, that I've spent getting to know myself and unpacking how I show up in situations that I've gotten and developed the courage to look at those moments when I'm not moving how I desire to move and the outcomes that come out of those situations. In this particular situation I just shared with you, there was a lot that I didn't want to see. And that's probably how things ended up getting so out of hand because I was avoiding these parts of myself. And that's what happens when the ego shows up. So it is okay if you find yourself in that space. It is okay if there are moments where you do not want to take responsibility for yourself. At the same time, you can't play yourself. You can lie to other people, but you cannot lie to yourself. And even when you try to lie to yourself, you're not able to lie to your body. You're not able to lie to your heart. You're not able to lie to your nervous system. You know deep down how you acting, even if you're pretending you're acting in a different way. And that's why it's important that you take responsibility for yourself. That doesn't mean to punish yourself though, because that's something I used to think before, that taking responsibility for myself meant that I had to punish myself over and over again. What taking responsibility for yourself really means is to look at how you contributed to your situation, acknowledge what your actions were, and then learn from that. So that when you are in that situation or in a similar situation in the future, you show up differently. You show up in alignment with the person that you desire to be. This here is a superpower. Most people never tap into this because that requires that they take ownership. That requires that they look at a situation and said, oh yeah, I did that. I'm the one that did that. You may even say, oh, I fucked up. And in those moments, we don't want to do that because we think that there's something wrong with being that person. We don't want to take responsibility because we don't want to be punished. That's all the conditioning that we've experienced since childhood. I know I experienced that condition, that fear of not wanting to say I did something because I didn't want to deal with the quote unquote consequences. But what happens when we start to take responsibility for ourselves, y'all, we get in charge. Because now we are in control. Now we can say, hey, I know I did that and I didn't like the fact that I did that. I can do different things in the future. I can show up differently later on. And that's something I want you to take away from what I'm sharing here, because it isn't about what the person did and what the person said. It's about what I did and what I said and how I showed up to it. Because I can only control myself. And when you know that you can only control yourself, you can step into situations with an openness to take responsibility for you in a different way. And what it does, it gives you your power back. Because then you're not afraid of what people are going to be thinking about you. You're not pressed on trying to people please. You're not overthinking your decisions. You are willing to say, I made a decision and I can stand by my decision no matter what comes on the other side of my decision, because I know I can control myself. And that is the freedom that comes from taking responsibility for yourself, and the joy that it allows you to experience when you know that you can only control you. So when you are able to focus on you, things can materialize in your life in a completely different way. And two, because I know that she was also a teacher, that this situation was a teacher for me, and that I learned from it. And because of that, I am a much happier and joyful person today. Because this person decided that they didn't want to work with me, I was able to actually sunset that mastermind. Because this person went and was so public about it, and I was triggered and pretty much functionally depressed for an entire month, I slowed down and I saw how unhappy I was with my program. I saw how this was so out of alignment with my soul. I saw that something had to fucking change because this was such a public and wild turn of events. I didn't pretend it wasn't happening. And I had the ability to see it and got to the place where I could be grateful for it. And it was all because of how this situation unfolded. It was because I was available to see that everyone and everything is a mirror. And I had the courage to shine that light of awareness on my shadow. And then I was able to learn, see how I was acting versus how I thought I was acting, so I can decide how I desire to act. In the next episode, we are going to wrap this 3-part mini series on unlocking the power of discernment in your life, particularly a spiritual discernment in your life. I'm going to walk you through my experience choosing to release all of my mentors or my business mentors so that I can quiet the outer world and listen to my inner voice. In this episode, I'm going to share with you the good, the uncomfortable, and the beautiful that comes from letting things go and doing it in a way that brings you joy so that you can open yourself up to receive the things that you desire. So please join us in the next episode for part 3 of the power of unlocking spiritual discernment in your life. And if you desire to join our sisterhood, the Self-Trust Society, head to theselftrustsociety.com to get started. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Mis amores. Hasta luego.